So that said, Jen, just a quick recap. Let's go, and of course, we're doing a book study, and this is the book of Judges. Finally, Jen, we're about to finish.
Yes.
This coming Sunday will be chapter 20, 21, and then last two chapters. But last Sunday, we discussed about, we talked about chapter 19, all right? So chapter 19, it's quite, like what I mentioned last Sunday, one of the most disturbing story actually in the Bible. That's my own personal opinion, of course. It might be some other disturbing, story for you, but this is for me one of those disturbing. Actually, it's a jaw-dropping story that highlights human depravity. Okay, and that is shown in the wickedness in Israel during a time when everyone did what was right in their own eyes. I think that's the whole premise here. So this is human depravity at its worst. All right, looking at chapter 19. So again, from 17, the author has been, defining this for us, and the theme is people, living without a king, doing what is right in their own eyes. So that was what's going on here. So chapter 19 now gives us another angle of this story, and the author's intention, I believe, is to be able for us to see really what is going on in the nation of Israel, from the family to the leaders, now to this situation among themselves, among God's people. And this is that's where it's very disturbing. And again, with everybody with no regards for law or God. No regards. So these people going off the rail. People doing their own thing. Not thinking about God, not thinking about God's word, not thinking about God's commandment. They're doing their own thing. So again, I want to encourage you, if you have not seen or watched or joined us last Sunday, I suggest that you go to our YouTube channel, watch my preaching. I'm not kind of like, hey, but also watch kids preaching, because we're the one who preached, for you to be able to have a more detailed preaching last Sunday. It was a long preaching, to be honest, but it's a preaching that needs to be broken down, because there's a lot of things here in this story that if we don't explain it properly, there's a lot of questions that's going to be left in our mind, and we're going to be either going to hate God or misunderstood what God is trying to convey here. Just like what we said last Sunday, the Bible is putting everything in the open. He's not reducting any story. He's not whitewashing anything. So this is the again, the contrast between the faithfulness of God and the unfaithfulness of God's people. And what we have been reading from 17, 18, and now 19 is that this is what happens when we stray away from the Lord and we do things what is right in our own eyes. Amen? So let me just give you a very quick, summary of the story last Sunday. So the story centered on, the Levite and his concubine and the mob men of Gibeah. So, and they were called evil men, wicked men, or son of the devil. Actually, that's one of the things. So that they raped this concubine of the Levite, murders her, raped her, gang raped her, and in response to that, the Levite husband dismembers her body. That's what it is. So yes, you're hearing me right. Cut off the limb of the concubine that's dead, of course, and sends that to the pieces all throughout the whole nation of Israel, sending it to the tribes of Israel. That means he cut that pieces into 12 pieces. So, and then also this shocks the people, and then the people this shocks the people into demanding justice. So this is what it is. That's why Judges chapter 19, and I want to focus on this because we covered a lot, especially for me. When I preached this last Sunday, I went verse by verse, all 30, chapter 19, I went from verse 1 to 30. So now I'm going to focus on some different angle here, because the people are demanding justice because of what had happened to the Levite and his concubine. So that's why it's stated in last verse of the chapter, and we're going to put that on the screen. And all the people saw it said, what had happened to the concubine, is that such a thing has never happened or been seen from the day that the people of Israel came out of the land of Egypt until this day. That means from the very beginning they walked out of Egypt until now, nothing happened. So consider it, take counsel, and speak. So some translation would say, think about this, think about what are we going to do about this, something like I'm paraphrasing. So now let someone speak. So there was a challenge here. So something like do something, or one translation says something must be done. So that was and speak. Consider and speak. Something must be done because of this heinous crime, because of this darkness, this something that I've never seen from the day that they left Egypt unto where they are right now. They have never seen something like this. So again, something must be done. So here's what it is. The context here is very important. Okay, the context is very important. So let me just give you a few more. Since what had happened to the concubine closely parallels, remember that in Genesis chapter 19, verses 2 to 7, the story of Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah. That's the whole purpose of the author here. He's giving us a story that is similar to that, okay? And also the corrupted depravity of the men of Gibeah is similar to the people of Sodom in the days of Abraham. So that means, and the sad part of this is that what the author is trying to say to us is that this is not even Gentiles. This is not foreigners. These are not people who doesn't believe in God. The whole emotions here is this, that these are God's people who are acting like and living like the people of the world. As bad as they are, as worse as what we could see from people who doesn't know who the Lord is. So this is the message. So the people is resolved. There, you got what? That something must be done. I don't know about you, Jen, when I look at this story and I think, of course, I have not experienced something, an injustice like this. I have never experienced something. But again, when you feel like, there is an injustice, there's this righteous indignation. Sometimes it's not righteous, just indignation that you want to make things right. Or you say into your head, something must be done. And again, Jen always corrects me with this. And sometimes when I'm driving, someone cuts you off, someone, and it's a fault, and then, gives you, flips you the bird, and you're like, you feel this injustice, and you're feeling like something must be done. Sometimes you ran after them, or, and my wife is always reminding me, come on, let go, it's not worth it, you just have to think. Because again, there's that feeling that I need to do something. I've been wrong. And I think this is the whole story. So something must be done. Have you felt that before, Jen? That some injustice that was done to you, and then you feel like something must be done. And don't get me starting, okay? I got a lot, but I'm just giving you some basic stuff here. So how about you? Have you experienced that, some injustice, and you felt like something must be done because this person, this group of people, so and so did this to me. It is unfair, and I demand justice. So it's not close to this, but actually that's what we feel, right? Jen, anything?
Yeah, there are, I think what we miss, sometimes we, look at injustice as something that's, grave, like,
You've been wrong.
You've been wrong, like big time. But, every day we experience injustice in many different levels and in many different relationships that we have, whether it be you've been misunderstood and you felt like you weren't heard, and that's like, in a sense, a form of injustice, sometimes, someone, maligned you, said something about you,
gossiped
or
against you,
then that kind of like brings up that it must be made right. Someone has to pay for it, or someone has to accept responsibility for what was done. And it could be in smaller smaller scales, but this one was like the biggest scale of all. Like that's why it said in the verse that Robert read, like something like this has this vile, this wicked, this grave has ever happened. Has never happened here in Israel since they left Egypt. And so I think we could all relate somehow with injustice. I think that's the main thing that we wanted to convey here.
And I think we have felt that feeling before, like what you said, like something must be done, or something should be made right. And it's very important but yet also you have to understand that's where I want to focus this Sunday. And we talked about this Wednesday because we talked about it last Sunday a little bit. I think Kit also mentioned about this in the second point, if I'm not mistaken. So also a little bit from me at the very end, but yet I want to focus more on that because I think this is something that day to day we experience, a day to day that we experience, the day to day that we feel. The question is that we should be biblical because there's a lesson here that the author is trying to convey to us. So while it is good that these people are having this, people are seeking justice in response to this grievous, heinous crime.
Right.
I mean, let me just put that straight, okay? Yes. This is right for them to seek justice.
That's right.
Okay, I'm not saying that, you look at this, I'm like, no, there's nothing. It's just, no. This is, again, it's good that they are seeking justice in response to what has been done. But here's what I realized, what I read this, and here's what I wanted to point out. Because there's something here that the author was trying to convey to us or communicate to us. It's important to note that into all of this, what's not said, into all of this story, or what was not mentioned, or what's missing in the story is very deafening. It's quite deafening for me. And what is that? God. In the pursuit of justice, the name of God, the Lord, the God of Israel, Yahweh, has not been mentioned in this story at all. Now, even specifically when they're seeking justice. Later, this coming Sunday, you see that when they battle with the Gibeons or the Benjamites and the Israel, they will be seeking the Lord. But at that very moment, when they started moving on this, nothing was mentioned about. God was not mentioned in the process. None. So again, we go back to the very theme of this story. Remember the theme of the chapter? And we started in chapter 17. Let me just put that on the screen. And let's read that. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. So we read that in verse 6. And then it's not on the screen. Then we jump to chapter 18, verse 1. In those days, there is no king in Israel. And then it takes about the story. And the same in chapter 19. He starts with, in those days when there was no king in Israel. That means they have rejected God as the authority. They have rejected God's standard. They have rejected God's moral standard, and now they're doing things on their own. Even in this, situation, as sad as it is, disturbing as it is, now they want justice, but yet God is not included. God was not mentioned. And again, this is very important. This is a very important a lesson here, because in this is a picture of pursuing justice without God to guide us and do what is right in our own eyes. So again, there's no problem about pursuing justice, but yet if we pursue justice without God, then we would do what is right in our own eyes, or we will exact justice what is right in our own eyes. In our own terms. This is what I'm talking about here. Because let me put this on the screen, and let me just put this as a main point here, and then I'm going to break it down a bit. Here's what it is. Because pursuing justice without recognizing God's authority and moral standards leads to injustice. So let me say that again. Pursuing justice without recognizing God's authority and moral standards leads to injustice. Because what we're seeing here, yes, there should be justice. Yes, they were pursuing justice, but to be honest with you, it led to injustice because God was not included. Because God's God's authority was not recognized, and God's moral standards were not embraced. Then imagine the Levite dismembering. Instead of burying his wife, he dismembered the wife. That's injustice. That is not right. Will we say that the Gibeons were right in what they did? No, definitely that was wrong. Because if you look at God's law, what they did is wrong. But again, just to justify, because this was done to me, then I could do this. This is kind of like a victim mentality in effect that, because I want justice, I'm going to do this. Yes, it got people attention, but at what cost? At what cost? Because what happened here is you follow, and we're going to talk about this in chapter 20, which is next Sunday, that there's going to be this, the way this Levite exact justice led to a civil war. Led to a civil war. So, is he right in asking for justice? Of course, because of what had happened to him, what had happened to his concubine. But also, you have to understand, you look at the story, and we have read the story, but he is partly
he's at fault.
At fault at this, because he gave his concubine.
He grabbed
He
his
got
concubine.
gave the concubine to the mom. And when you look at this it happened here. Okay?
Yeah.
And look at this thing in 21. But the man would not listen to him, so the man seized his concubine and made her go out to them. And they knew her and abused her all night until the morning. So this is kind of like, all right, I'm seeking for justice, but these people did this. I understand that. He is correct, but it seems like he's saying to the people, and we're going to see that in chapter 20, that I'm not at fault at this, because these people, I'm not saying that, again, if something was done wrong to you, that, that's your problem and not the people's problem. I'm not saying that, but in this situation, it's very specific that he is also to be blamed in the process, because he brought his concubine outside. He could have just stayed. He could have just let her not go out, fought for the concubine, sacrificed his life to fight for the dignity and honor of his family. So again, this is what we're talking about. I'm not saying that, of course, if something was done to you, then it's your fault because you did this and that. I'm saying this is a different story here. Okay, I just want to make sure that you're getting what I'm saying here. So what's your take on this? Because again, pursuing justice without recognizing God's authority and moral standards leads to injustice. Because when things got difficult, because he's a Levite, he understood God's word. He knew better than the other people. So instead of doing what is right on his part, he's the one also who led the concubine, outside the house. And again, some people may have a different take on this, but I'm just reading that and taking that with this. So here's the question. When we seek justice without considering God's authority and moral standards, we risk creating a distorted and incomplete form of justice. Let me say that again. We risk creating a distorted and incomplete form of justice, because the way he had pursued justice for me is distorted. The way he had pursued justice here is also incomplete. Distorted, because again, what was the law? You should bury them, with honoring. That's distorted, man. Cutting. So sometimes, yes, you've been wrong, but you have to be very careful in how you pursue justice. Because if not, what you're going to do is incomplete and distorted, and usually when it's that, it is injustice. It's no longer justice, because it's a different standard, and also you're not recognizing God's authority. Because some people would say, you're putting the law into your own hands. We can't. If we acknowledge God as king, then we know that who has authority. All right. Any comment on that? So as we are, what do you think about that, Jen? And since you're processing this as well.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of, how can I pursue justice that leads to injustice? Like, I've been wronged, and like personal examples, or maybe some daily examples when you pursue justice without recognizing the authority of God and his standards, and it leads to injustice. Like, say for example, if someone maybe did something wrong to you or said something wrong to you, then it gives you license to do something wrong against them.
Yes.
The same thing. And so that's kind of like, it's not aligned to God's moral standards. It's not recognizing the authority of God. And it led to injustice because you did exactly the same thing, which the injustice that you felt, you just did the same thing to the other person. And therefore, you are now not exacting justice, but you are also contributing to injustice.
Exactly. Just for example, someone cuts you off. Now you got mad. So now, of course, there was injustice there. And then now, in exchange, you cut them off as well and break check them. Now you're what? It's now a distorted justice that's now leading to injustice.
That's right. That's good. Actually, that's very good.
So,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, good. And sometimes when you are, when you feel like you've been wronged, what do? Sometimes the initial response of a person is, to
do to them what they did to you.
So, like, say for example, hurt them, physically. Like, oh, because you did this to me, I'll do I'll do this to you. You know, the idea of you are given license to
do the same
thing to the person who did wrong to you is a distorted view of.
And again, there's a difference when you're defending yourself. For example, someone wants to attack you with a knife. Of course, you need to defend yourself. That's a different realm that we're talking about here. Because you're walking in the street, and then someone with a knife wants to, stab you. Of course, you're gonna defend yourself. You're gonna go try to, prevent yourself not being stabbed. Either you just push that person, punch that person, because again, that person is trying to hurt you. But again, in situation we're in, just like a perfect example, just like what I said. I mean, I think this is gonna be what dropped into my mind. I'm driving, someone cuts me off. Now I'm mad. Injustice was done. Then I do the same. So now what's happening there is that the question is, Lord, what's your standard on this? So the standard of God is to cut the other person again, because Jesus says, if someone slaps you on the one cheek, then the God's standard is give the other one.
Yeah, while you were.
So this is a lot. That's why I wanted to focus on this, because this is a subject that we kind of like don't want to dig into deeply, but I wanted to really dig into this deeply.
Yeah.
Because there's something deeper here that the author is trying to convey to us. Yes, you feel, the author's intention was really for you to feel that appalling emotion about what was done to the concubine. Yes, we all felt that, but also let's not forget, they are crying for justice. They're saying, something must be done, because that's what we feel when we are wrong. Something must be done. But the way it was pursued, if we're going to pursue justice without recognizing God's authority, moral standard is this: it would lead to injustice. And exactly what was going on here. The author is not saying here that what the Gibeons did was right. That's not what the author is saying here. It was wrong. But the way it was, the way they have pursued this is something like, we have to ask that questions. All right, let's read some few comments here.
Yeah, Gabby says, I find it disturbing that the Levite, who knows God's moral standards, added more injury to the concubine's dead body by cutting her up into pieces instead of laying her to rest.
Yes, there was a dishonoring that happened.
Yes. And then, additionally, she said, we have to learn how not to react to situations in life, but to respond basing on God's standards.
Yes,
right?
and this is what it is. Because again, that action, because when we do things in our own right, in the context of justice, without acknowledging God as king, that is authority, and also because authority comes with his rulership and his laws, then we're going to end up still doing what is right in our own eyes. So, and I think this is very important for Filipinos culture and other cultures as well, but specifically ours, because we have this very, I'm Filipino, and I'm gonna admit this, we have this vindictive, character in our culture, or vindictive feeling, attitude in our culture. So this is what it is. So this is done to me, then I'm gonna do this. You're being gossiped, maligned, then you're gonna go gossip and malign other people about other people. Then it gives you this license. That's what you're saying, because you're feeling like that's the justice. You did this to me, I'm gonna do this to you. But it's that part of God's authority and moral standard. So what do we do then if these things happens? Are you just gonna let it be? Well, that's what we're gonna talk about. Okay, some few comments here. I love it. Come on, honey.
Is saying, is this similar to what I'm thinking about when people throw the other person under the bus to save themselves? Yes.
Yes. In other application, yes. Yep. To save themselves. Or now, sometimes it gives us a license to do something wrong. It's because you're being wrong.
Yeah. Like, say, for example, in an argument, somebody says something that you feel like, oh, that's not right, or that's not true about me, and then you start calling them names.
Yes. Or someone curse at you now because that's injustice, then also it gives you the right to curse them. Or cuss. So now, is that justice? Is it a justice within God's authority and moral standards? Yeah. Because here's what happened. Let me ask you this question. Is our understanding, here it comes to mindset. That's why I have to ask this question. Is our understanding and pursuit of justice, as we have done this, is aligned with God's nature and his standards? Because there's no problem about pursuing justice, but is it aligned to God's nature, that means God's character, and his standards? Or, is it shaped by human perspective in our own personal agenda? Sometimes what I mean, human perspective is that what people does in a culture, or because of our personal biases, because of our emotion. Right. So is it driven by being aligned in God's standard, or driven by our own bias and our own agenda? Let's read some few more here.
Jerlene says, when you retaliate, it makes you no different from the person who hurt you.
Yeah. And this is what's going on here. That's why it has exploded into a civil war. It's because, again, yes, something must be done, but yet the way the Levite responded to this, to demand justice, it's quite something that was never seen. Yes, it has rallied the people, don't get me wrong about that, and we're going to talk about that this coming Sunday. But yet, is this really the justice which is under God's authority or not? So here's what it is. We're going to put an end. So when you look at this, so the question is, so answering those questions, is our understanding in pursuit of God's justice, or pursuit of justice, aligned with God's authority and moral standard, or his character, right? Or our own personal agenda, or our own human perspective, or what is shaped by the culture? So how would you know? Two things that I want to say here, all right? How would you know that if it is aligned to God's character, or is it aligned with your own personal perspective, or the society's pressure? Two things. Here's the first thing. Because true justice recognizes God's authority. So true justice recognizes God's authority. What do you mean by that? So this is very important. This is the first and foremost understanding. If you are a believer, to save us from heartache and pains, and also to preserve our soul when there's an injustice being done. So here's the first question that we need to understand, or first statement here, truth. True justice recognizes God's authority. Psalm 7 verse 11. So I like this, 7:11. Okay? And God is a righteous judge, and a just who feels indignation every day. One translation, who feels angry or anger to the wicked people. That's the context here. So what do you mean by this? Because true justice must recognize and uphold God's sovereign, or God's authority. So it has to be. If you're going to pursue justice, remember this: you are under God's authority. You're not going off the rails. So that means God's authority. That means lordship. That means if you're a believer, you are still his son and you are still his daughter. That means you have to believe, as you pursue justice here, that more than anything else, you're still a believer. You are a Christian. You are under God's authority. Because acknowledging that he is the ultimate judge, as we pursue this, as we pray, as we ask for justice, we still acknowledge, Lord, you are the ultimate judge and the standard bearer of what is right and what is wrong. That's the very beginning. God is the ultimate standard of what is right and what is wrong. Not you, not me. Because if it is us, then, come on. We don't know the real situation. We cannot read people's heart. We don't know people's mind and intentions until it is it is practiced, or as it done by action, as we see that. Because again, without acknowledging God's authority, our human interpretation of right and wrong becomes what? Flawed, subjective, and incomplete. Let me say that again. If we don't, recognize God's authority, our perspective or our interpretation of the situation might become what? What is right and wrong becomes flawed, subjective, and incomplete. So that's very important, because God's standards are eternal and unchanging, by the way. All right? While our own perception can be swayed by personal biases, emotions, or cultural trends, God is not, because according to the verse, God is a righteous judge. He is righteous. The way he judges is right. What is right, and what is wrong, and what is wrong. Because without God's authority in mind, our sense of justice becomes vulnerable to biases. That's why when people are talking to me, so-and-so did this, so-and-so, and then you just absorb that. Be careful. Then sometimes if you're wrong, if you don't have a perspective of God's authority, then become now the way you pursue justice become now a personal agenda. Okay? not align with His truth. So you've been wrong, you've been maligned, now becomes your now personal agenda. Now you're vindictive now. But by not acknowledging, recognizing God's authority. Comment, Jen. This is good. I mean, this is a good start for us to know.
Let me read just a few
Christina?
topics first. Christina says, when there's no submission to God's law, there is no order that will eventually lead to a society's collapse.
Yeah, more than just the society, I think when we take it personally, it's a personal thing as we apply this. And I understand, yes, I believe that, and I agree with that 100%. But you have to bring this lesson now to our own personal walk. So now if there's an injustice that happened in my life, before I react, before anything else, when I want justice, I have to put this into mind. I have to recognize God's authority. God, first and foremost, when you pray, Lord, yes, I want justice to be done, but Lord, I recognize your authority over this because you're the only one that sees and the standard of what is right and what is wrong. That's the starting point. Not what I want, not what I think is right, not what I feel is right, but what God says.
This is, I think we are very emotional beings, you know, so when we feel that there's been an injustice that's done to us, normally, you know, the first reaction would be not to pray, it's an emotional response, you know, and normally when we respond emotionally, it is us, you know, defining what is right and wrong in our own eyes, you know, because we respond based on how we feel at that moment. Therefore, how I feel is right, you know, and therefore I respond to how I feel because it is right for me, you know, to feel this way. And I think there's a lot of people who says, you know, you have to acknowledge and validate how I feel. You know, yes, but it doesn't mean that what you're feeling is actually true and right. You know, yes, you're feeling that way, and that's all, and you should acknowledge how you feel, but then it may not necessarily be right and true because God is the standard bearer of what is right and what is wrong.
Yes, I'm looking from James, Jen, and then I think we studied this, that we are supposed to be quick to listen and slow to speak. Because again, why quick to listen? Because again, there's got to be some processing that needs to happen. Quick, slow. Yeah. And let's read this from Kiesel. Yes, it takes a lot of faith and strength to respond correctly. Just a situation that came in mind is what if somebody hurt your child without you knowing, how do you respond to it? It's easy to retaliate, but it takes faith to align our response to God's standards in any situation. I agree 100%, especially when the people that you love are involved. But yet at this particular moment, it's easy to respond just like what you said. But again, we have to trust God's authority. We have to include God in the process of pursuing justice. And here's what it is. Because again, God is a righteous judge. That means nothing escapes from the Lord. That's why vengeance is mine, says God. So because it's not us who would execute that. It's God. Because why God? Because He's the standard bearer of what is right and what is wrong. So that takes faith to trust God to do what is right. Because again, if you're the aggrieved party, you wanted to make things right because you've been maligned, you've been shamed, you've been wronged, but yet it takes that.
And I think that when you move and act apart from, you know, praying to the Lord first and submitting your emotions in what you are thinking and how you're processing the injustice.
I'm just gonna drink my milk tea by
If we act without God's guidance, you know, it somehow makes us reject God's authority into thinking that God cannot deliver or do what is right on our behalf.
And that's what's happening here. I like that, what you said, because now you're not trusting God that He could judge. He's a righteous God, that He could judge correctly. So now, Lord, let me do this on my own. Because I know you're righteous judge, but I'm going to do it. Let's read this from from Joshua. Here's what it says, Romans 12:19. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. Exactly. Because again, I like that. Thank you, Josh. I was looking for that a while ago. I'm like, where's that? So I've been
while listening to me,
I'm looking for the verse.
Multitasking.
Multitasking. So, but that is exactly the verse that I was looking for. Because do not take revenge. Because again, if it is not acknowledging God's authority over the matter, is that we're going to take revenge. I like what it says. It is mine to avenge. I will repay. Why? Because he is a righteous judge.
Yeah. And so when we act, just like I said, when we act apart from, trusting God's vindication and acting in a way that is not what God wants us to do, it is as if we are rejecting God's God's authority and His ability.
You're right.
To
make things right.
The right judgment on people.
Yes.
So
and it's interesting about that, Jeff, because we always want justice, right?
Yes.
But when it comes to our own personal walk, we want grace and mercy, not
That's
justice.
right.
It's interesting because when we approach God, Lord, I need justice because this person did this to me. But when we make mistakes and we are on that end wherein we are the source of that injustice, our prayer is quite different. Lord, extend mercy. Lord, extend grace. To me, Lord.
To me.
Because
But
I have
for
done
them-
it. But for them, Lord, no. Lord, just bring down the firing sulfur from heaven and burn them. See how,
Yeah,
because
that's right.
we are not the right
righteous
standard
judge.
bearer of what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
We are not a righteous judge. We are flawed judges.
Yes.
We are.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So Honey says, I'm sorry, Pastor, but I'm stuck on the Levite's action toward his concubine and his situation. What should be his action? I don't agree with what he did, but how should he have responded? I'm looking at this in a moment of urgency. Am I making sense? Also, what he did
Yeah.
after.
And here's what it is. That's like what I've said. It is right for him to seek justice. What I was saying is that what the distorted part there was dismembering the body part.
Yeah.
He could have just went to the whole nation of Israel. I know that he did that maybe just to capture everybody's attention. But yet you could have done that in a different way. So I'm not saying here I hope I'm going to make it clear again. I'm not saying if there's something that is done that is wrong that you don't seek justice. For example, when you are wrong, then you're going to take someone to court, to have justice. It's okay.
Yeah.
But yet, please remember also while you're pursuing that true justice recognizes God's authority. That's why you need to pray. You need to seek the Lord. You need to ask counsel.
Yeah.
That's very important in the process.
Yeah.
I just don't go out and sue someone is because I feel like I need to do it. There's something that we need to do. Yes, I'm not saying that he's not supposed to ask. I'm not saying that he's not supposed to ask for justice. I like what I've said. There is an injustice that was done in this situation.
Yeah.
There was an injustice.
Yeah.
But yet, dismembering the body part.
Yeah, that's something else. I hope that kind of helps you, Honey. Okay, let's go read Gabby's comment here. She says, Caleb prays to God when he's upset with me instead of arguing with me right away. And I think I should do that too instead of letting my emotions get out of hand.
Yes, prayer is one answer. Not responding is another answer. Quick, slow. Remember that?
Quick to listen,
Slow to speak.
slow to speak,
And slow to become angry.
Yeah.
Yep. So quick, slow. So my wife reminds me when I'm driving. Quick, slow. But I also do that. So. Okay.
Okay, Sheila says, I was in a situation where I was hurt so bad and I wanted to make that person feel the same way. In the end, instead of finding peace, I felt worse.
Yes.
But when I finally surrendered everything to Him, which is to God, peace came to me in a different way, which is God's way.
Exactly, because that's
That's
anger, bitterness. Remember that discussion?
Yes.
So it progresses. That's why I like Romans chapter 12. Give room to the Lord, according to 12:19.
Yeah.
Let's read that again
Here,
from
with
what Joshua says. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. Leave room for God. But what I'm saying is that, what I'm saying when you read this is that it's not saying that you don't pursue justice. It's not saying that. You should, but make sure true justice recognizes God's authority.
Yes.
That you do that with this mindset that God is in control, that God controls everything, and He is the standard bearer of what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah, and I think I like the one that Joshua, the quoted part in the Romans 12:19 says, for it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord.
Yeah.
And it is his job, ours.
Yeah. But if you were wrong, you want to pursue justice, by all means.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Joy says, I can relate to this. Many years ago, when my daughter was a teenager, someone close to us hurt her. When I found out, I drove around every place I know where I can possibly find him with a knife. Oh my gosh. Until I was told not to take the law in my hands. When I look back, I couldn't believe how I reacted out of my emotions. I could have gone to jail myself.
There you go.
You know,
so see what we're talking about, because now for that, it led to, if it has progressed to that, it would lead to injustice.
That's right.
Because yes, someone hurt you, but now you don't have that. You are not the judge, the jury, and the executioner.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
we're not.
And
that.
I think I love what Joy says, because it brings us to the reality that, with injustice,
Yes,
it is
something needs to be done. That's what's the
and
author
it
is saying there.
It is possible for us to commit the worst sins.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if you're a believer or not. If you do not recognize the authority of God and His ability to exact justice the right way, that He will be the one to avenge, and He knows what is right and what is wrong and what is, the right kind of justice, then you would take matters into your own hands, and you will do the worst.
And by the way, these are believers that we're talking about. These
Yeah.
God's people.
Yes.
All right, by the way. So this is from Anjo. Felt injustice when someone got the promotion because he is close to the boss. That we tend to claim that we are better than that person. We become self-righteous. We forgot that God is the one who gives promotion.
Yes.
See, that's
Very good.
recognizing
Yeah.
God's authority.
Yeah, very
So God is, in situations like that, we have to give room for the Lord to move.
Yes, that's right.
So what could be an injustice in that, or could turn to injustice when we realize that, when we begin to gossip about that person, says I'm better than person. Then see, now you're seeking justice, but now you've turned this to injustice, is because you have not recognized God's authority.
Yes.
Let me cap this with this statement. Therefore, pursuing justice without acknowledging God's authority is not just incomplete, but also it is a perversion of what true justice is meant to be. So what you're going to do is going to be a perversion of justice. It's not the complete, it's not the, because you're going through your own, what is right in your own eyes. Okay, so let's just, a lot of people are responding. This is kind of like, I love it. That's why I wanted to jump into this. I don't have much time Sunday.
Yeah.
I just kind of like went through it a little bit because I know I need more time to explain.
Yeah. Yeah. Cling with, let's
Okay,
read
let's
Cling.
read.
She said, to forgive is not easy. There is still no delete button where we can erase all the wrong things that had occurred in our lives. But I believe that God is the only authority that has access to the delete button. Just saying. Yeah.
Because again, when we confess our sin, 1 John 1:9 is just and faithful to forgive us. So God forgives, but again, God doesn't forget.
Yeah.
So there's some scripture that He forgets all our iniquities, I think, if I'm not mistaken, but there's a different context to that. All right, so now we're answering this question. So when our justice or pursuing of justice is not aligned to God's standard. All right, there's another one here before I continue. So
yeah, human vengeance, according to Joshua, says
it's not justice.
It's not justice. Yeah, human vengeance is not justice. Human vengeance is to get even and feel good in the process. God's vindication makes the person whole again.
Amen.
Love it.
Love
Yes,
it.
yeah.
Love it. That's nice. Beautiful. Beautifully said. So we move on. Through justice, recognizing God's authority. I know you're all glued in. I could see that. Again, this is a topic that we all
It's very, very
very,
relatable.
very
to be
relatable,
honest.
and we all feel this. And here's the next one, because true justice also reflects God's character. So when you read the story here, where is God's character being reflected here?
In dismembering.
Dismembering the body. When did God did to any one of us when we have made a mistake? The dismembering doesn't what? Reflect God's character here. Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 4. Look at this. He is the rock. His works are perfect. Let's continue. And all His ways are just. A faithful God who does no wrong, upright and just is He. And look at this. I love that. That's why I underline. And all His ways are just. That means all His ways are right. So,
Yes.
so that means a faithful God who does no wrong. Upright is He. So look at this. Yes, He is what? perfect, but also he's just, but also he's faithful.
Yes.
Look at all the character here that's being done. Again, I think it's reflected into all of this. Actually, when you look at a faithful God, so God could have demanded justice from them.
That's right.
And said, hey, you've been doing all things, so, but let's do this. God is just. It's part of his character. What is the character of the Lord, or nature of God is his character, is that he is just. It means that he's always just. So his character is that he cannot be unjust. He defines and sets the standard for justice. So that means pursuing biblical justice means we follow God's way to make right that which is wrong, and we look to the scripture to define what is right. So if you want to pursue justice, thinking about reflecting God's character, if God's character is just and faithful, then we need to do the same. And how do you do that? You need to go back to the scripture, because he already gave us the whole things here, or list here, and how to do it right. This is the way we're going to do it right. We're going to do it according to the word of the Lord. So when God judges, he does so with perfect righteousness. So think about that. When he does it with perfect righteousness.
Yes.
I don't know about us, but I don't have perfect righteousness. Yes, I'm righteous because of what Christ has done. Perfect? It's just imputed upon me. His judgments are neither arbitrary or inconsistent. God's judgment is not arbitrary. And also, it's not inconsistent. Very consistent with his word.
Yeah.
Okay? God sees sin for what it truly is and judges it according to its severity. Also, he does not overlook unrepentant sin or let it go unpunished.
That's right.
While many may believe that God's kindness and love would prevent him from sending anyone to hell, or, sometimes for letting us suffer the consequences of our sin, his righteousness demands that sin be addressed with justice. Let me say that again. His righteousness demands that sin be addressed with justice. So God's nature does not allow him to simply excuse wrongdoings. His judgment is always aligned with his what? This character, holiness and truth, because he's just.
Yeah.
So now, let's apply that. So, you want to pursue justice. Number one, recognize God's authority. Number two is God's character reflected in the way I'm pursuing this?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yeah.
So, for example, the cutting. Someone cuts you off and now you're going to cut them back. So is God's character reflected? I'm speaking to myself as I'm saying this to you right now. Okay? So as my wife is laughing. And I know it's going to be repeated.
See, this is the Holy Spirit's grace and, faithfulness being reflected right now. See, there is an understanding of what is right and wrong right now. And a confession too. That's
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
so that's the thing. It's God's character. Someone maligned you. So now you're going to malign. Is that God's character being reflected in that as you pursue justice? So that means I could pursue justice. The Bible is not saying don't. What is that? Is it, it is reflecting. Is it reflecting, or does it reflect God's character? We have to. So yes, I'm pursuing to make things right, but I have to understand also that I still do it speaking the truth in love. I'm not shouting. It's because I just wanted to be heard and just, cursing people. That doesn't reflect God's character. But again, I could state what is, what happened to me in a way that it is what? Honoring, respecting, not honoring, but respectful. So because again, that's what we're talking about here. Does it reflect God's character? Let's read some few comments here.
Yes, Jane says, turning to other people and godly counsel for advice on what to do can also steer us in the wrong direction in our pursuit of justice. We can agree with the advice of others, but if it doesn't align with God's truth and character, then it isn't the right thing to do.
Yes.
God is the only one who can define what is right, and God is the only one who can give us the best guidance on how to pursue justice.
That's why godly counsel is very important. You approach people who reads the word, who reminds you of the word. You just don't approach people, specifically the same people who has been hurt by that same person, because they're not going to be able to be, at least I'm not saying an absolute here, but but sometimes you want to go to people that you know that they're kind of like gonna side with you. Be careful with that.
Yeah.
All right, let's read from Sophia.
JC says, there is one point in my life that I felt injustice because the person who wronged me was not punished or got convicted from the things she did to me. I was so frustrated and I felt so angry on the situation, but my mother reminded me of the verse Romans 12:19, that we shared a while ago. Yes. Thank you for sharing, JC. I love it. The application of this word is just resonating in people's hearts. Mami Avi says, love is the essence of God's character. Yes, love and justice.
Yes, love and justice. You can't separate both.
Yes.
Because God is love and also God is just. So both of those works when we're pursuing justice.
Yes.
Because God loves us, but He cannot not punish sin.
Yes.
That's why He sent His Son Jesus Christ, so that would be the propitiation, the payment for the sacrifice for our sins. Because God cannot overlook sin.
Yes.
So He
Otherwise,
cannot.
Jesus would have died for nothing.
For nothing.
Yes. Clang says, you cut them off too, Pastor Robert, then confess your transgression to the Lord later. Just kidding. No. That's an abuse of God's grace.
That is pursuing things again. I know you're just making it fun.
That's true. Yeah,
yes.
that's funny though.
Usually that's what happens.
That's what happens normally. But you don't do it on purpose. I hope you don't do it on purpose and think.
But sometimes you react and then you realize and then I'm like, Lord, sorry.
I should have not done that. Yeah.
But yet if the intention is like, okay, I'm gonna go, cut that person off and later I'm gonna repent. Now that's premeditated.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So that's quite different.
Jerlian says, yes, if we are not careful, we can become irrational and vindictive, even to the point of justifying that what we did to get even is just about right because they deserve it.
Yes.
Only God can exact justice, not us. Sorry, Lord. Sometimes my emotions really get the best of me, especially when hurt.
Yes, all of us. Because that's the thing here. It's crying out. Something must be done. That's the right statement. It says here, consider it, take counsel, and speak. That's what it is. Something must be done.
Jane is laughing at just as long as you repent. Yeah, it's funny, but it is true for some of us sometimes before we commit a sin. Like say, for example, someone did something wrong to you, really want to curse that person and you're just saying, God, just this once, let me say this word because this person
about 10 seconds or 30 seconds just to say
Can I just become a non-Christian for just 10 seconds and say these words, and then I'll be, a Christian again. Repent. No, we cannot do that.
We cannot do that. That's why when we're talking to people or if we are wrong, we've been maligned, and that's the first thing that we need to ask is my action in pursuing justice reflect God's character? So, or just to prove myself, to prove to people that I'm right and I'm wrong, and I'm gonna do this to the extent that it's no longer honoring to the Lord.
Yeah.
So I don't think so. Again, justice needs to be done with what had happened to the concubine and the Levite. I agree 100%.
Yes.
But does that reflect God's character, the way the Levite pursued this? Most probably not. And you're gonna read that more in chapter 20. Because there was telling the story is all I came to Gibeah, and this is, we were discussing this last Tuesday with Kit, and he kind of like this is one of his observation. So I came to Gibeah, I and my concubine, it's all I this happened, but nothing about really where's the concern for the concubine?
Yeah.
Where's the remorse? Where's the pain? Where's the emotion? Because he had lost his concubine.
Very interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of things to ponder and think about in these verses and this story. These are just side stories, by the way. It's not side stories of the book of Judges, and it's very, very interesting. I used to read it and I'm like, I didn't mind it. It's like it's too gory, but whatever, But now it's more, more relatable.
Yes, and come to think of it also that we talked about it last Sunday. I already went the whole chapter one by one, and you think we have exhausted this, but actually there's one topic here that we could really go deep. And this is deeper, is that this pursuing of justice.
Yeah.
And let me just put this on the screen, Jen, and then we're gonna go pray. Again, what's the main theme here? Because pursuing justice without recognizing God's authority and moral standards leads to injustice. If we are not careful, it's gonna lead to injustice.
Yes.
The Bible is not saying that you don't pursue justice. No. That's not what the Bible is saying. But be careful that we pursue this without, recognizing God's authority. He is the ultimate standard of what is right and wrong. But also that we need to understand that it has to reflect His character. All right?
Yeah.
Just read this. I'm reminded of Joseph's brother. His brothers were jealous of him and sold him into slavery, but God promoted him due time. Romans 8, everything works together for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose. Yeah.